Reading from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25. I love it if any of you want to follow along. You've got pew Bibles, so, go ahead and open up a Bible and follow along with me, and then keep your finger in the page. Page 27 of the New Testament. That's the second part. That's after the other part. The old part. Beginning with verse 14, chapter 25. Remember, parables. Keep in your brain, parables. Jesus has been talking about the kingdom of heaven. And so it is as if this particular verse begins with, the kingdom of heaven is like, okay? When he says, for it is as if, it's the same thing. All right? Ready? For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. And then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. And his master said to him, Woo! You have done good. Well, he didn't say the woo part. Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And then the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, Master, you handed me over 2 talents. See what I have made. I've made 2 more talents. And his master said to him, Woo-hoo! Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent, who came forward saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground, and here, you have it. You have what was yours. Here, have it back. But his master replied, Well, you wicked slave. You knew, did you not, that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested the money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Thus ends the reading of the word. Parables. Last week, I told you that we talked about the parable of I renamed it. Instead of calling it the parable of the wise and foolish virgins, I renamed it to the parable of the prepared and unprepared girls. But parables, it's important for you to know the setting of this parable. Now, I know I've been preaching over the past few weeks about Jesus being in the temple, calling the Herodians and the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the elders and the scribes to account. But Jesus isn't in the temple anymore. In chapter 25 of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus is on top of the Mount of Olives talking with his disciples. Just his disciples. So these parables, the one about the bridesmaids and this one, the parable of the talents, isn't told to anybody in the temple. This parable of where this parable is going. This is the last parable of Matthew's Gospel. It is the last occasion of instruction of Jesus with his disciples. In chapter 26, Jesus is going to be betrayed, arrested, and crucified. So this parable is Jesus' last instruction to his disciples. Sitting with them on the Mount of Olives, then, he is the man who is about to go on a... You have your Bibles open? I told you to keep your finger in, didn't I? It's as if a man going on a long journey. So the man going on the long journey is Jesus. The servants in the story are the people he's talking to, the disciples. I will share with you later, what bothers me a little bit about this parable. But we've all heard it many times before. This parable only appears in Matthew's Gospel. You've all heard it all your lives, right? How many of you have heard this for the first time today? Yeah, okay. So I need to erase any thoughts about this being about money. Okay? All right? So this is a fill-in-the-blank sermon today. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm taking talents out of the story. All right? And I'm going to put something else in the place of the talents. Are you with me?
Yes.
So it's as if a man was going on a long journey, and he entrusted to his servants his favorite jokes. To the first servant, he gave 5 jokes. And that servant loved those jokes so much. He thought they were the funniest jokes. He just laughed and chortled and chuckled and had a smile on his face all that time as he thought about these jokes that the master had given to him. As a matter of fact, people came up to him and they said, "How come you're smiling and laughing all the time?" And he said, "Let me tell you this joke." And so he shared the jokes with everybody that he met. And everybody that he met shared those jokes with other people. Well, you know what? This guy and his joke telling got so popular, and he had so many people who came to hear the jokes, he decided to open up a comedy club. Yeah. And so he opened up this comedy club, and people were telling these jokes every night, and other people came to tell new jokes, and this comedy club was like the sensation of town. And when the master came back, well, he was so excited. He said, "Oh, this is fabulous. I can't wait." And so he got himself a table, at the front of the stage for every night, so he could hear the jokes. So he could hear his favorite jokes told by other people or told with a different twist, and he could hear new jokes. It was great. The comedy club was a success. Now, the second slave, well, he got 2 jokes. But he loved the jokes that he got. He thought they were hilariously funny. And what he decided to do was to hone his craft, and he took the jokes on the road. And he went on tour with the 2 jokes that the master had given him. And people loved the jokes. He went to every comedy club there was in the land, and he shared these 2 jokes. And he traded them with other people. As a matter of fact, people said, "I gotta have that joke. I want to tell that joke. Have I got one for you?" So they gave him a couple more jokes, and he collected those jokes, and he brought them back, and he was a regular at the first slave's comedy club. telling his specialty jokes, and the ones that he had collected while he was on the road. Now, the third slave didn't get the joke. He was given one joke. He was given one joke by the master, and he didn't get it. He didn't like it. He didn't get it. And he knew he couldn't tell it. He said, I can't tell that joke. It's not even funny. So he didn't. He didn't tell anybody the joke. He didn't share it with anybody else. And he forgot about it. Until the master came back and said, how'd you like that joke? And the guy said, oh, that joke. I didn't like it. I didn't get it. Here, have it back. And the master said to him, I gave you that joke because I love that joke. I loved that joke so much that I wanted you to share it with other people while I was away. Because I wanted them to have a good laugh. Because I think laughter is good for what ails you. Because I think when people can laugh, they're healed from the inside out. So I gave you that joke because I wanted you to tell it for me. Since I couldn't be here, I wanted people to have the gift of that joke. And you know what? If you didn't get it, you could have come to me and asked me what the punchline was all about. As a matter of fact, if you had asked me, I would have given you some pointers on your delivery of the punchline. I would have helped you tell that joke so that people could really enjoy it and have a good laugh. What bothers me about the parable is this kind of Ayn Randian. How many of you know who Ayn Rand is? Ayn Randian, fountainhead, individualistic independence of these servants. What bothers me about this tale is that each one of them takes what he or she is given and goes out and does with it something by themselves. Now, I have a tough time wrapping my head around that because I am a Christian and I am part of a family of faith. And we do stuff together. We figure it out together. So I don't understand why these three servants did they work together, do you think? Do you think they knew each other? Yeah. I think they probably worked together. Why couldn't the three of them pull their jokes and have the best comedy club in the world? Why couldn't the three of them pool what was entrusted to them, working side by side, making something marvelous? What was it that kept them apart from one another? What was it that made it so they weren't a community of people working together to make the master's jokes wonderful, to make people laugh, to bring joy and laughter into people's lives so that they laughed so hard the tummy muscles hurt? In this fill-in-the-blank sermon, remembering that this is told to Jesus' disciples. It's told to Jesus' disciples right then and there on top of the Mount of Olives, but it's also told to Jesus' disciples tens of years, hundreds of years, and thousands of years down the line who are overhearing the parable. Got it? The fill-in-the-blank part of this, okay, so I put jokes in there. But you could put in the first slave got 5 commandments to share. The second slave got 2 commandments to share. And the third slave got 1 commandment to share. Or you could put in there, the first slave got 5 stories of Jesus to share. The second slave got 2 stories of Jesus to share. And the third slave got 1 story of Jesus to share. The first slave took his 5 stories about Jesus and grew them into wondrous, wondrous stories and wondrous images about who Jesus was and grew a church. The second slave also took his 5 stories of Jesus and grew another church. But the one slave think he was much of a storyteller. Just didn't tell anybody. That story that he had, that wonderful story that he had about Jesus that had been entrusted to him. What's the punchline of this parable? How many of you have a story of Jesus here? How many of you? How many of you have a story of Jesus right here? If not every one of you raises your hand, I'm going to quit. We are the disciples of Jesus Christ. Each one of us may not have 5 stories. Maybe we don't have 2 stories, but we got one story. One story about Jesus that we can tell someone, and we can give them a good laugh. We can get their tummy muscles just aching because they are now included in this incredible story. So I say to you, this parable of talents, this last and final instruction of Jesus Christ to his disciples, is the instruction to you. Do not bury the story. You have one. Tell it. Amen.